Down Podcast, part of the Cavs media family. I'm your host, Justin Rowan. The Chase Down is presented by Fubo, the official streaming partner of the Cavs. Watch over 350 channels of live sports and TV, including FanDuel Sports Network without cable. There's no cost and no commitment. Try for free at FuboTV.com/Cavs. Well, the Cavs season is over as they have been swept by the New York Knicks. Game 4 was not competitive and is probably going to leave a little bit of a sour taste in the mouth of us. I know that was a particularly tough watch for myself. Joining me today to discuss it and discuss the season as a whole is my co-host, Carter Rodriguez. Carter, how you doing, buddy?
My brother, was that the longest Cavs game you've ever watched, spiritually?
Yes. And
I just kept looking at the clock being like, there's still 19 minutes left? Like, it was a really, really sad way to go out, and a really, really sad series to watch. I think probably the hardest series I've ever watched as a Cavs fan in terms of the degree to which it was demoralizing. You got everything. You got the blown lead in game 1, and then you just had a total Knicks clinic the rest of the way. And I'm gonna get this one out of the way, and I'm sure everyone listening is going to be grumpy because everyone's going to want to talk about all the things that went wrong for the Cavs, and we will. I do have to eat some crow on this Knicks team, and they are so much better than I thought they were. And all the things that the Cavs weren't able to do, the Knicks have been able to do this postseason. Timely shot making every time they need it, selfless defense where everyone's contributing, everyone's closing out, everyone's doing their job and picking each other up. Relentless focus. They have just put their boot on the necks of teams when they get them down. And these are things that the Cavs weren't able to do, and you have to give them credit for being this good. Because I think if the Cavs had played a really good series, they might have still lost this series with the Knicks in this kind of form. I do not think the Cavs played a very good series, but I'm just saying I think it's a testament to the Knicks that and they're just I thought that if the Cavs played a good series going in, that they were going to win this series, maybe in 6 games. Or I don't feel that way anymore. I think the Knicks are just better.
Yeah, and I said coming into this series that if it was played 100 times, that I thought that the Cavs would win 40 times, the Knicks probably win 60, and we'll see how things shake out. I was wrong on that. I honestly was. And the final numbers aren't in, but it does look like the defensive rating for this series is probably going to be around 120, which would be very close to the worst that the Cavs have ever had in a playoff series. The only one that came close is that Celtics series a couple of years ago where they were just missing half the team. Allen didn't play in the series. This is a lot worse than the Pacers when it comes to how the defense performed. And the reality is, right, like you look at this series, coming into game 4, the Knicks were shooting 35% from 3. It's not like they were red hot like the Indiana Pacers a year ago. This wasn't running into a buzzsaw in terms of the form that this team was in. Yes, they are playing great basketball. Yes, this team is a buzzsaw and they're on a massive run. But at the same time, you had a team that was very clearly rusty in game 1. And I think there's a realistic possibility that even if the Cavs held on, that this thing could have wrapped up in 5.
I think it would have. To be honest.
With the current
if that
form,
Merrill in and out 3 winning, I still think this is Knicks in 5.
And I think it has to do with the current form of these teams. And as much as there was a lot of talk about shot quality and that sort of thing, and we talked about it on the last podcast that the Cavs were actually generating more wide open threes than the Knicks. The Knicks were just doing a better job of converting it. You're not entitled to shoot league average on your wide open shots, right? Like just because you're getting those shots, it's going to normalize over an 82 game season, but playoff series are inherently a small sample size and you have to find ways to adjust. And fatigue was obviously a factor. Like I think the Cavs playing every single day for a while is a part of the equation, but that's part of the marathon of a playoffs run, right? Is everything you do has a compounding effect, right? The Knicks executing these good habits for this extended period of time, they're getting better as the playoffs are progressing.
I feel like the
And
basketball gods have rewarded their good basketball karma.
and it's not even karma. What it is, gentlemen sweeps are one of the most common things you see in sports. A team goes up 3-0, they lose game 4 on the road, they close it out on home court. It's something that we see time and time again. The Knicks have come out in back-to-back series and they have taken care of business, and they have earned their rested legs. They have done everything they need to do to put themselves in position so that they have fresh legs and that they can come out and hit those shots and continue to play good defense and rest OG's wounds, right? Like if OG, if that Knicks series versus the Sixers extended further and he had to come back early and maybe play through a little bit of pain, he's not going to be the same player. The Cavs had opportunities throughout this run to close out teams sooner than they did, right? Game 4 in Toronto is a glaring one, right? Like they really had an opportunity to win that and potentially win the series in 5. They had opportunities to close out the Pistons. And even though they wouldn't have got a rest if they won the Pistons series in 6, it still would have been, just the one day off. It's still one less game on your body, right? So I think you have to give credit to the New York Knicks in this situation, because the seriousness with which they've approached this playoff run has put them in position to make their own luck. So as much as you can look at shot quality, and I think that type of stuff is important when it comes to things like analyzing, was the offensive system generating quality looks and things like that, the approach and the level of consistency and mental toughness that the Knicks have displayed, I think, put them in better position to make your own luck. And really, that's what playoffs are all about.
Yeah, man. And you look at, you look at the regular season the Knicks had. They were, they finished one game better than this Cavs team, who were very disappointed to land at 50, that no one had us pegged to land at 52 wins after a 64 win season last year. They went through their own trials and tribulations, but I just think the difference is, like, this Knicks team has just shown that their best gear, like, they can get there and they can stay there. And they showed that in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. Did the Cavs? They showed they could get there. But they certainly didn't demonstrate that they had the capacity to stay there, to truly, take over the proceedings of a game, of multiple games in a row, and dominate, break a team's spirit, and boy, did the Knicks do that tonight. I mean, about as disappointing of a loss as you can see. Like, the fact that we're not going to discuss this game, I think tells you everything you need to know. Like, Donovan had a nice game scoring. That's really it. But again, I think it goes back to, as much as we talk about shot quality and those things, and they do matter, and we are interested in them, and as much as that narrative, I think, is flown a little off the rails nationally. Like, what are the other things you can point to? Because, like, when the Cavs were down at half of game 2, I think it was, like by 4 or something like that, I was like, I feel okay. They're hanging. They're playing. They're not making anything, but and the Knicks are shooting well, but they are hanging in because they are doing the little things. Just not sure you could really say that for games 3 and 4. I mean, just so many runouts or miscommunication. Like, OG has that transition play where he gets fouled, where 4 Cavs were back, but all of them were on one side of the floor for no reason. Like, just a lot of that, where their habit. This is not a team that I think displayed championship habits at any point in the postseason, and like, eventually a team, when you make it to
consistently,
when you make it to the Final Four of the NBA, like, that stuff matters, and I just don't think they had. I don't think they had it.
Yeah, I mean, the Knicks had more fast break points off of made buckets through 3 games than the Cavs had fast break points. Period. Right, like that. It's stuff like that, right? It's reducing your margin for error and doing the things that help you navigate bad shot luck, right? Or bad shooting performances, I should say, right? Because I'm sure, given the fact that this was a sweep, everyone's emotions are going to be running hot, right? Like I'm grumpy. Like I'm honestly like I'm grumpy, but at the same time, I understand that there's a responsibility of sitting here on this platform and talking, right? Like it's I have to be measured and think about this and kind of remove the emotion because it obviously hurts, right? Like anyone that cares about this team is hurting right now, and everyone's going to pick whatever aspect they find easiest to blame, right? We it's what we do. It's how we cope with this kind of stuff. It's how we find scapegoats. But the reality is, it's always multiple levels to it, right? And I do think getting back to what you're talking about, not consistently displaying those habits is ultimately what killed this team, right? I think that is part of why these previous series went as long as they did, right? They showed what they need to do at times, but they've never really done it with consistency, right? Like Donovan's playmaking in Game 7 against the Pistons, that's absolutely terrific. That's not how the game was approached the rest of this series, right? Like it just wasn't. And there's a variety of reasons for that. It's not just the Cavs choosing to, not. It's not like the Toronto series where I truly did feel like a lot of those losses were based on their own decision making. The Knicks are doing things to put them in uncomfortable positions. They're taking away those passes to the interior, but the way that you open up passes to the interior is you're either hitting shots from the outside or you're beating your man individually one-on-one. And I think we saw many times this postseason that both Donovan and James were struggling to create those advantages one-on-one. And I think when you contrast it to the other side, which, for all the conversations of you can't win with a smaller guard as your lead guy and all that sort of thing, Jalen Brunson he just made the NBA Finals. And yeah, you can attack him, but I saw a consistent level of effort out of him, the willingness to take charges. Yeah, it's annoying when he flops on the defensive end, and that's kind of his go-to defensive move. But like, there's a compete level there, and I think the consistency with which he was competing on the defensive end to draw those types of charges and things like that, and also just the composure offensively, right? All right, I'm breaking down this individual point of attack defense. I'm getting to the second level. I'm surveying my options. I'm passing guys open, taking care of the basketball. Like, there was just a level of professionalism there that the Cavs just couldn't replicate it. They couldn't create those individual advantages offensively one-on-one. And when you can't do that, and all of a sudden you're completely reliant on scheme to generate the looks, it makes things a whole lot more difficult when you are giving the defense something that they can take away, that they are capable of taking away the bread and butter on sitting on those interior passes.
Yeah, it's a talent league and it's an execution league, and like, you break schemes with your talent and with your execution, and you can execute by hitting the short roll over and over and over again, and when they take that away, you have to hurt them in other ways. This is the NBA. This is not a one problem solving league, and the Cavs kind of only had one thing they could count on in this playoffs on a night to night basis, and that just makes you pretty predictable and pretty easy to stop. And they just really were never able to get in sync. And Justin, teams move fastest when everyone's in sync. I'm stealing the last one of the year. Zoom Workplace keeps meetings, chat, docs, and more together so your work flows like a perfect play. Keep work moving and zoom ahead with Zoom Workplace.
You stole it. You went the other way. You windmilled it. Good for you, buddy. Yeah, I think ultimately the lack of consistency is probably how this season is going to be remembered, right? Because there were highs with this group, right? And I think that we have learned things about this team throughout this run. Some good, some bad. Obviously, the bad are going to stick out more, but I think when we're more removed from it, we're going to be able to be more level-headed. But the lack of consistency is one of the biggest things, right? And you look at how the Cavs performed after the Harden trade, and I know you and I are on the same page that they were a better team as a result of that, right? They are better equipped to assess what this team can be this season as a result of that trade. But when you look at how they performed against teams with a winning record, both regular season and playoffs, it was a losing record after that trade, right? And I think that is reflective of that lack of consistency, right? That not being able to consistently establish that rhythm. And the schedule wasn't as favorable as it was after that point, and you were playing more of those teams. One, maybe you would have been tested a little bit better, and you would have been a little more prepared. But the other part of that is it's possible you were on the other side of the bracket and you would have been playing the Knicks in the second round, or you would have been playing some other team, right? So I think it definitely puts a damper on it, but at the same time, I do think even as okay, so circling all the way back, as probably one of the biggest Darius Garland fans out there, I do think people need to calm down when it comes to looking back on that as part of the story, because if the trade wasn't made, you heard Darius at the end of the year saying that he's on 9 toes. That would have been the story. We would have been in the same spot we were last year, where we were talking about, well, okay, if this team was healthy, what could it have been? We wouldn't have been able to make proper assessments or anything like that. That would have been the whole conversation, right? It's do you have the patience to keep running it out, which I don't think is a realistic option to begin with. I appreciate the fact that the Cavs recognized the position that they were in. They made a move to be more competitive this season. They believe this team was capable of making a deep playoff run, and we took that playoff availability variable out of the equation. I think that there is a value to that, regardless of how this outcome played out.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this like every year. Is like, man, all you really can ask for at the end of the year is good data. Good evidence-based data that says, what kind of choices do we need to make this summer? Because reality is 99.999 times out of 100, you're not going to win the title. So the best you can ask for is a nice, well-preserved body to autopsy, not one that like had 9 other maladies before it passed, and you're trying to play whack-a-mole to figure out what was the problem and what wasn't. And like, you cannot point at health. This was the healthiest I maybe have ever seen a Cavs team head into a.
We finally got a healthy playoff run. Yep.
You had some lingering things here and there, but nothing that other teams weren't dealing with, and they just, I don't know, man. Basketball is a funny sport, and like as I'm sitting here trying to like reflect on what the season is, I kind of just keep going back to sometimes it's just not your season. And I know that if you are listening to this right now, your eyes just rolled, because that sounds like an excuse, and it's not. Like it can be not your season and your fault that it's not your season, but basketball is a funky sport, and sometimes the alchemy around a season just isn't right. And teams cross some invisible threshold we don't understand, and it's just never easy. And it just feels like a constant upstream swim, and that's what this season felt like to me. Where they start out, they're like a 500 team through like 35 games or whatever it is. I was looking through their schedule. Really, the only time I felt like this team was playing like truly above, like at their talent level basketball, was the very end of the year in the first like week of January, where it's like you beat the Spurs, you beat the Nuggets, you beat the T-Wolves, you have the crazy Jalen Tyson game in mid-January against Philly, and you have a few of those, but like other than that, like when you had your win streaks, it was against the dregs of the league generally, and like there was really no other point where I was like, man, that was some championship ball stretch where this team was playing at or exceeding their talent level. And like, I don't know, after 35 years on this planet, Justin, why some teams are more than the sum of their parts, why some are less. It's this ineffable quality that I'm not even sure the players know.
Yeah.
But it just didn't feel like their season. Do I think that they did enough to, you know, reground themselves? Like, we always talk about culture, or I always say, like, culture is not tested, is not proven under flowery circumstances. It's proven under duress.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think this was a great season for this team because their identity was constantly shifting. You did see the same problems popping up in terms of their floor balance, their transition defense, their attentiveness to the little things that make basketball teams great. But yeah, I just keep going back to it. It just didn't feel like their year, and like I don't know what to do with that coming out of that, because sometimes teams just have bad years and then they bounce back and it's like, oh, okay, here we are. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's, you come out and you're a dead man walking, and it's just, in that sense, I do feel like it's a really challenging set of decisions for this front office and ownership group in the summer.
It's an incredibly tough year to evaluate, and I think the reality is there are no easy decisions, right? I heard Simmons and Lowe talking about, oh, it would have been nice if they kind of had an off ramp, right, with Garland and that sort of thing. Like, yeah, it's nice to imagine that sort of thing, but there isn't a path where you would have had an easy decision. Like, even if you're talking about that as an off ramp, you have contract things to figure out. You have the health to figure out. You have this season, right? And the reality that when you're in this collective bargaining agreement, you can be in the second apron twice in 5 years. This is one of those years. If they did moves to drop talent from the team this season to get under the second apron and restart the clock, how is that going to be read by anyone in the locker room? How is that fair to Donovan Mitchell, who in a season where a lot of guys were taking steps back in terms of their on-court performance and availability, he really did carry this team in the regular season. He got them into position to, make a deep playoff run and still have home court in the first round at least, right? It wouldn't have been fair to him. So there is no possible path that you could have gone down that would simplify things and make it so that there are easy decisions. Because when you're at this stage of team building, every single aspect is difficult. It's even more difficult with the collective bargaining agreement. And to your point about it being just in a lot of ways not their year, you come into this season, Darius isn't available. DeAndre Hunter doesn't take the step forward that you're expecting. Evan Mobley,
a big step back, to be honest.
Evan Mobley, who had linear growth each year of his career leading up to this, didn't have that step forward at the start of the season, right? I thought he leveled out as the season progressed, but then he's dealing with calf issues, and it takes a while for him to find his footing. Jared has, fractures on both hands, and his impact is limited to start the season. Jalen Tyson was uneven to start the year. You forget because the season's so long, but he wasn't off to a great start either, right? And Max Strus doesn't come back until a couple weeks before the playoffs, and isn't at the same level of physical ability that he was even last year, right? So I think from that aspect, you could say, okay, well, was this team trying to catch a falling knife by making moves to try to win at the deadline? But at the same time, like, as a fan, even though it's easy to play the result, I have a real appreciation for the fact that this Cavs team is always looking to find ways to get better, to move forward, to test what the team is capable of doing. Even if sometimes it's uncomfortable and you can second guess, the route that they went, I have an appreciation that, unlike a lot of teams that seem to be okay with complacency, they're always looking to get better. So to me, that's one of the silver linings and what gives me some confidence about how they're going to handle what's likely to be a very difficult offseason.
Yeah, I mean, I do think like anything's on the table here. This was a really, really painful series. And when you have really, really painful series, it's really hard to know what the right direction is, because as you mentioned, the stakes are so high when you're playing for championships. The you have to balance as a front office and ownership group and a coaching staff. How much do you let that embarrassment drive your decision making? Because this was a really, really rough series, and the Cavs are going to be the butt of a lot of jokes and have been for the last week. And so you don't want to be completely dispassionate and just be like, oh, well, losing in 4 is the same as losing in 7. Like, it's not,
Yeah.
right? But like, I don't know. I don't know quite what you do here. Obviously, the backcourt decisions are looming in terms of what they're going to do with James this summer, with Donovan becoming extension eligible. What do you do there? It does feel like it's going to be a very tense summer, and I'm trying to figure out, just as I talk through my own feelings about how things are going, like, is it just going to like be inherently a little less fun because the stakes are cranked up so high, or was this just a kind of a uniquely challenging season where like just the team couldn't get healthy, the team couldn't find their mark, and if they played, because like I like to think we had a lot of fun last year, and it was a really easy team to root for and follow, in a way that I think this year was just harder. Like, do you follow what I'm thinking? I'm curious what you think about this.
It's both, right? And we said that coming off of last season, right? We said that this is probably going to be our 2009 year, right? Where it's as fun as it's going to get, and now the pressure gets more real. And the injuries throughout the season and everything, the adversity that they faced, that made it less fun as well, right? Like I think both of those things were compounding, and I'm always going to have an appreciation for the resilience they did show, right? Like this team could have packed it in many times, but before they eventually did here, which is what it looks like happened in Game 3, right? Like I think at some point the plug got pulled with this group, but they showed a lot of resilience along the way, and while how it ends is probably going to leave a bit of a lasting taste, I do think I am going to look back and appreciate what they did coming back and winning the series versus Toronto, what they did versus Detroit. Like I do think that those are going to be positive memories. But yeah, like it just is less fun, and there aren't going to be easy decisions. And I think to some extent, like when you are in a situation where there are no easy decisions, and there's a lot of different ways that this can go, I think the most responsible thing to do is to be open to a lot of different paths. I think you have to explore.
I think if you're like, if you are saying like, as a lay person, or even as a front office member, like, I know what this team needs to do next. It's like, okay, I don't buy that. I think this is a pretty fraught territory where any road you go down is a little scary.
Absolutely. And I think that's almost reflective of the series, right? Where so many times we heard, oh, all they got to do is, put Max Strus in the starting lineup. That lineup was worse. Like that lineup was worse for the series. Lineup had been worse for the playoffs. There were no easy fixes, right? Like, I wanted to see Jalen Tyson play more in the series because I'm a believer in him long term. But he didn't look ready for this. Like he did not play well, right? I don't think the difference was I want to see things just to see them. I wasn't sitting here acting like anything was going to be a surefire fix. And I think the responsible thing is to go into the off season, open mind of every potential path. And I think you have to respond to how the league reacts, right? Like I think you evaluate every single option based on offers that are available, opportunities that are available, right? That aren't trades, aren't anything, whatever opportunities are available. You have to look at every single potential way you can go down and pick whatever the most coherent path is based on those offers. Some of that might be running back more than you expect. Some of that might be parting with a player that you didn't think that you were comfortable with, but because of the offer that's available, this is now the most coherent path that we can go down. I think that is the responsible thing to do. And I think it's going to take time. I think it's going to take consideration, a lot of reflection. But I do think, going back to talking about the Harden trade and removing that variable from the equation, I think we got really valuable data here.
Yeah.
And injuries were part of the regular season story. It wasn't part of the playoff story.
What?
And I think in past years, you could always kind of fall back on that to some extent. You could say, hey, like, if we were healthy, I still firmly believe if the Cavs were healthy last year, that they'd make the finals. And I think they legitimately had a chance to win a title, but that might have been the window. That might have been the window. And I think for people that don't agree with that, I think that's a reasonable take, right? Like, people that thought, hey, this group couldn't make it, that might have been something that you felt before, but now we actually have data points on what actually could have happened. We tested it to the fullest extent of our capabilities, and we got this as the result.
Yeah. I think one thing that I will kind of point to that is a big year-over-year change is I think the Cavs had, I think it was a rough, roster building year where just a lot of the swings just didn't really pan out the way we hoped. And most of the swing, I mean, you can litigate how you feel about some of them, but like picking up Lonzo Ball, that's a miss. The Hunter trade ends up a miss in a way that I just never would have expected,
especially after it was
it
such
started
a hit.
so well. It started so well, and then just kind of fell off the tracks. And then
I thought it was a hit, but it turned out it sucked.
Yeah. And then the trade to get out of that, which I also liked. It's like, hey, we'll get Schroeder for some bench ball handling, and Keon's this darling that had 20 teams checking in on him at the trade deadline, and he can't really help too much. And the Larry Nance Jr. signing, which everyone loved, he didn't,
so many of these are deals that we wanted to see ahead of time, before they even happen, right? Like, I was mentioning Alonso as an avenue to get off of Isaac, right? I wanted DeAndre Hunter. I wanted, right? Like, it's funny too, right? It's like, I think they were all largely good bets, right? And going back to the Hunter one, like, he made a huge difference last year. Like, that really normalized it and made the roster and the rotation make sense. But he didn't take a step forward. He took a big step back. Everything was less comfortable at the start of the year, and I think it just got this season off to a weird start. And you're just always trying to fix things on the fly, and I think it's tough to rebuild or fix a plane when it's in the air.
Yeah. And that's, I think, part of like where that, like, it's just not our year thing is. Like, the vibes were just wrong from the jump. Like that that first game against New York, like, and Evans like running like crazy ISOs, and the offense is really
like
gunked up.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it just never felt like they had a really strong sense, whether it was the coaching staff, whether it was the players. It just, the buttons, in all the ways that last year just felt like the buttons were always like, it was just like playing the game on easy mode, where it's like Kenny rolls out a lineup that I wouldn't have rolled out in a billion years, and it wins their minutes by 10 points. And you go, oh, okay, cool. Like, Kenny saw something I didn't see. And then this year he runs out, maybe a unconventional lineup, and they get blown out by 10 points in like 2-3 minutes. And now everyone's, so it just felt like nothing was understood in a way that like you just didn't know what to count on, really, other than Donovan in the regular season being just an absolute microwave, very much earned every bit of his second team All-NBA appearance. But then in the playoffs, he really wasn't able to elevate the way he has in playoffs past. So it just, man, it's so weird to be disappointed after a Final Four appearance. A thing that I have on this podcast talked about, like, guys, they outperformed 26 other teams in a 30-team league to get to where they are. But that's why we watch. That's why we focus on the process. So we can.
And what did we say when we were defining what success would be coming into these playoffs? It wasn't just conference finals. It was you needed to have at the very least a competitive series, because what you were looking to establish and what you were looking to verify is that you are a contender. And a contender, a true blue contender, is at the very least going to be competitive in every series that they're in, right? It would come down to things like
Two blue contenders don't get blown off the floor at home.
A little shot making variance, whatever. Oh, we had an injury that didn't go our way. We had multiple close games, and they just performed a little bit better in the clutch, right? Like you look at that San Antonio OKC series, it's a seesaw, right? Like but either team could be potentially up 3-1 in this situation if a break went a different way. That's not what this was, right? And it's different than every other series, basically every other series other than the Knicks one, right? Like the Knicks one a couple of years ago, we were coming out of that saying Cavs didn't have the shooting talent, like they didn't have the role players to come out of it. You probably could have said the same thing about Boston, but there was just so many injuries, it was tough to evaluate. And then that Pacers one, I still thought even with the injuries, they could have won that series. Like I think it really leveled the playing field with all the injuries, but I definitely think if they were healthy, they would have won. I respect anyone that disagrees with that take, but that's just, I'm saying that all just to illustrate how this is different, right? There isn't a what if from an injury standpoint. There isn't anything other than the Knicks were the better team. And honestly, like, because of the way they won and everything, I don't feel animosity for this team. And that's weird, because that's the New York Knicks over there. But I feel no animosity towards them. Honestly, like they have a great fan base. Knicks Film School, Andrew Claudio, all those guys do terrific work. Like I love the work that they're doing. That's a tortured fan base. That's a fan base that travels.
A team that's not hard to root for. I mean, they all play so hard. I was going to
say, like, boo the hell out of me in the comments.
They are better than the sum of their parts.
No, but boo me on X, the everything app, whatever you want to do. Like, if they win a championship, I'm not going to be sitting here like gritting my teeth, because that's a hardworking team that has an identity and a tortured fan base. As much as New York fans can be arrogant, and in other sports they're blessed, the New York Knicks are not a blessed fan base.
And by the way, just to point out a few things about that team, like that's they are led by Brunson, an undersized guard who everyone told me that you can't win with because they're just so devastating to your defense, especially an undersized crazy high assist guard like Brunson, who is more of a scorer than anything. And Karl Anthony Towns, talk about a guy who changed his stars, one of the most well-known, quote unquote losers of the first 8 years of his career. I mean, everyone and their mother will tell you can't win with this guy. Mm-hmm. And he didn't have a crazy series, but you know what he didn't do? He didn't kill him. He hung out. He hit timely threes. He rebounded
on
well
the defensive end, right? Like he overcame his.
Yeah, he did not get cooked defensively. Yep. And it's like, hey, in the same way that I keep saying, this is just didn't feel like the Cavs' year. Like, that's the kind of togetherness of what a team of. I don't want to say team of destiny, because I'll be picking whoever comes out of the West over the Knicks in the finals, just because I think those two teams are so very phenomenal. But that's the unspoken alchemy of basketball, where it's hey, we've got just the right crew that a guy like Landry Shamet can shine with us. A guy who lands on every team's at the end of every team's rotation he's ever been on, and never hit the shots you needed him to hit at the rate you needed him to hit, and then he shoots 95% from three in the conference finals. That's the magic of what a team that's actually together and amplifying each other's strengths and protecting each other's weaknesses, not schematically. Yes, there is scheme to what the Knicks do, but it's the selflessness with which they cover for one another and the way they all gave their very, very best efforts on a possession-to-possession basis defensively. I'm sorry, you just would not look at that team. OG's a good defender. Hart is a tough defender.
Mikhail's a good defender for sure.
Yeah, but Mikhail's a guy we used to joke about roasting with our backcourt. Like, we were not afraid of Mikal Bridges defensively in years past.
He's been better this year, and
but what I'm saying, what I'm saying is he's better this year, not just because he's playing well. And you do have to give credit to the individual, but because of the overall ecosystem of what the Knicks have created in the 2025-2026 season. And that's just something the Cavs had a really, really hard time finding.
It goes back to identity. Like, they have an identity. They have stuck with that identity. They've made modifications to it, but in terms of what they expect, how they approach things, like it's consistent, right? Josh Hart wasn't playing well for the Blazers, but he came to the Knicks and it was a cultural fit for him, and he hasn't looked back since, right? And I think that goes back to how I feel the Cavs should approach this offseason, which is evaluating all options and picking whatever the most coherent path forward is, because I think they got to reestablish what that identity is. I think last year they found one. I genuinely think last year they had an identity. Yes, it fell apart after they got hurt, but I think the way that they played, the beautiful basketball and the cutting, the shooting, they were actually a great shooting team. This Cavs team wasn't, right? If you look at them post the All-Star break, just the way that they played basketball, I thought it was much more coherent. And this year, because they had to make so many changes on the fly and availability was out of the way, I think it made it tough to establish that chemistry and continuity. That was our biggest fear coming into the playoffs. And I think that was something that we saw in practice as well. I think reestablishing an identity in whichever direction you choose to go is the most important thing for the Cavs entering this offseason.
Oh, man. Hard loss. Before we go, I just want to say a couple bright spots. I do think the Bigs had a very nice playoff. I think Mobley and Jarrett showed me something in terms of Jarrett had these unbelievable stretches this season where he hit higher highs than I've ever seen him hit. Evan, who I was very hard on all season, I thought generally had a very, very strong playoffs. Didn't love how many threes he took and a few things like that, but he hit some really timely ones. Defensively, he was great. Offensively, he attacked off the bounce. He got off his feet quickly. Didn't do didn't pump fake to oblivion like he did at earlier times in the season and earlier times in his career. I do think that's something to hang your hat on. And I wanted to make sure in what was always going to be a very hard podcast to talk about positives. I do think the Bigs showed a lot for their proof of concept in terms of how they can contribute in a playoff setting.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that was the biggest bright spot in these playoffs. And I think when they went away from it, that was when you started to have that slippage, right? Where it didn't feel like Cavs basketball. I think that's been obvious, right? Like you listen to national podcasts, you listen to even casual observers. It's, well, why do they go away from them, right? Like it was something that we saw time and time again. And I think
it does feel like the first time people were like, why did the guards go away from them and not why did these losers not grab the ball?
Right. That definitely is a bit of a flip, but I think, again, it's tough. It's tough to win multiple playoff series where you don't have the best player in the series, right? At least in terms of who performed the best in each individual series. And the fact that the Cavs won two where that was the case, that's impressive, right? But I think you look at the guard battle, Jalen Brunson clearly won it, right? You could probably even make, when you're talking about two-way play, Mikal Bridges might have been more impactful than either of the Cavs guards in this series. That's just a really, really tough spot to be in, particularly when you don't have the injury thing to fall back on. And at least when it comes to those two, you don't really have the internal growth aspect to bank on either, right? Like, this is probably as good as they're going to be realistically in Cavs jerseys, right? I think Donovan still obviously has all NBA years left, but you're not expecting growth and improvement or changes from who he is. And James is certainly probably going to get worse from here, just banking on Father Time and the history of almost every player ever ages. So it does make things a lot more difficult. So nothing easy for the Cavs ahead of time, nothing easy about this here podcast, but it still is special to continue to, have this opportunity. I appreciate everyone tuning in that does support us. Like to get sentimental and all that, like it really does mean a lot. It means a lot to me that you guys hang out, that you guys subscribe, that you interact with us and give us feedback. It's really, really cool, this relationship that we have. And obviously it's really cool that the Cavs continue to, be supportive of this podcast, the way that, all the terrific people on the social team that support us, Matt, Brenna, Mackenzie, you guys are the absolute best. It's really, really cool that we have this platform where we can be honest, right? Where they give us the trust to sit here and be critical at times. Just counting on the fact that we're going to be fair and that we're going to take a step back and try to remove the emotion from it, right? Like I'm going to be walking around grumpy after this one. It is what it is, but I continue to be proud of the work that we do and really, really appreciative of this opportunity.
Yeah. Shouts to the folks on the social team you shout out. Shouts to Brandon, and a big shout to the Gilbert family, obviously, for all their support. I think they had a very good playoffs, the Gilbert family, in terms of the busing, in terms of the way that they kind of have supported the team and so big shouts to them. But the biggest shout has to go to Cavs fans and our listeners who hang out with us twice a week in the season and ride with us through the highs and the lows and yell at us when they hate our takes and very rarely clap for us when they like them. But we really appreciate all the support and helping us continue to do this, especially in this very unique relationship where we're kind of a member of the team's media family. So thank you very much to everyone involved. We love doing this even when it's hard. And today is a hard one, but as I tweeted this, but like this feeling feels so bad today, and I'm in a bad mood. Justin's in a bad mood, and I'll probably be in a bad mood about this team for a couple weeks, and like this is not the way I want 82 plus games and then another how many do they play? 18 playoff games, Dan. You don't want it to feel this
100
way.
games, baby. It was a 100-game season.
Yeah. After 100 games, you don't want to feel this way, and it's going to take a second. But, and no one wants to hear this, but right now is not forever. And we do not know the future. And if you say if they run it back, they've got no chance, or if they change it, they've got no chance. We don't know, and we're not going to know. And me and you have been surprised, for good or for bad, too many times to pretend like we do. Thank
God we don't know anything.
I know. That's part of what makes this fun and worth doing. So, I'm not going to tell anyone how to feel, but just remind yourself that, this feeling ain't forever. But hopefully the Chase Down podcast is.
Hell yeah. I love that. Then, if you need a break, Canadian sports. The season is in full swing.
Summer.
It's Sea Bear summer. I've got a Bomber preseason game on Friday. It is. I at least have some good weather to look at. So that's I'm trying to find the sunny side here. So big thanks to everyone again tuning in live on YouTube. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Click that notification bell so you know when we're going live. If you're listening via podcast and you want to support us, leave us a rating, leave a review, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, and help cook those books. If you want to be part of Chase Down's exclusive Discord chat, send a screenshot of the review to chasedownpod@gmail.com. However you choose to support us, we really do appreciate it. Make sure you guys are staying safe out there. Until next time, go Cavs.